I paid for a luxury cruise vacation, but my stepson took my cabin for himself and his friends, and moved me to the cheapest one on the ship. The next day, I got to the port before they did, and the cruise set sail without them. Don't forget to subscribe and share your experiences below. Let's get started. I bought the cruise tickets months in advance. Not just for me, for all of us, for the so-called family. Nicole, my wife, and her son, Tyler, from her previous marriage. It was supposed to be a reset. An olive branch extended with one hand while the other stitched up old wounds. 7 days at sea, premium cabins, excursions I couldn't care less about but knew Tyler would. A gesture of good faith, the kind you can't refund. $9,241.64. That's what I paid. I remember because I checked the statement 3 times, thinking it had to be a mistake. But it wasn't. That was the price of my delusion. A number that sat in my chest like an anchor, heavier with each glance. I told myself it was worth it, that maybe a week away from the house, away from the routines and rituals of silence, could reset the equation. We hadn't taken a vacation together in over 2 years. Every time I suggested one, there was always a reason not to. Tyler's schedule, Nicole's anxiety, someone's birthday, someone's mood. But this time, I didn't ask. I booked. I picked a balcony suite midship. Stability, comfort, privacy. I imagined us sipping wine at sunset, watching the horizon melt into gold. I imagined laughter, Nicole's hand in mine. I imagined Tyler, maybe not grateful but relaxed, unarmed. And for once, I let myself believe in that picture. But the day before departure, the cracks split wide. I was checking the app, looking at the itinerary, double-checking the dinner reservations I'd paid extra for. That's when I noticed the room assignment. Different than the confirmation I'd received. Different in every way that mattered. Tyler's name was listed in my original suite, along with 2 other names, his friends, I assumed. Names I didn't recognize. And mine? I was moved down 3 decks. Inside cabin. No window. 2 twin beds. One marked with a maintenance flag for air conditioning issues. At first, I thought it was a glitch. I refreshed. Same thing. I called the cruise line. Waited through the hold music. Gave them my booking number, my ID, my payment confirmation. The woman on the other end was polite, almost apologetic, but firm. The booking was modified online this morning, she said, by someone with access to the confirmation email. Nicole. That was the moment it clicked. Not just the change, the intention behind it. Someone had to go in, open the confirmation email, log into the cruise portal and reassign rooms. Someone had to choose. Deliberately, consciously. Someone had to look at that suite and say, he doesn't belong here. When I confronted Nicole, she was in the kitchen, flipping through her phone, barefoot, humming. A glass of wine in her hand already, one of the bottles from the cruise package I'd had delivered early. The kind of detail she noticed when it suited her. I told her what I found. Read the names aloud. Asked her calmly why. She didn't even blink. Oh, she said. Tyler and the guys just wanted to be more comfortable. You'll only be in the room to sleep anyway. That was her answer. That was my wife's loyalty. She didn't apologize. Didn't ask if I was okay with it. Didn't even try to pretend it wasn't deliberate. Just kept scrolling, sipped her wine, and walked out of the room. That was the moment I realized she'd stopped seeing me. Stopped seeing the man who paid every bill. Who had taken on her son like he was my own. Who had put Tyler through private school when his own father disappeared. Then reappeared for birthdays with flashy gifts and excuses wrapped in cologne and late-night texts. The man who fixed the roof, repaired the dishwasher, cut checks for Tyler's braces, tutoring, car insurance. Quietly. Always quietly. No thanks. Just an expectation that I'd keep doing it. And I did. Because I wanted to believe in the image. Not of a perfect family. I'm not that naive, but of one that could be patched, stabilized, if I just carried enough of the weight. Nicole always called me steady. That was her word. Ethan, you're steady. Unshakable. I used to think it was a compliment. Now I know what it really meant. Disposable. Predictable. The mule who never bucks. That night, I lay in bed next to her, staring at the ceiling. She was asleep within minutes. Comfortable. Secure. I wasn't. I lay there thinking about every time Tyler had rolled his eyes at me. Every time Nicole said, "He's just a teenager. Don't take it personally." Every snide comment. Every joke about how I wasn't really a boat guy. Every passive-aggressive remark at dinner. My name is Ethan. I'm 41. I work as a financial analyst. I see numbers the way other men see red flags. Not as abstractions, as evidence. Nicole thought I wouldn't notice the small transfers she started making last fall. $80 here. $120 there. Clothing stores I didn't recognize. Amazon orders under alternate emails. The gym membership she never used. The one with personal trainer charges. She thought I didn't see her, or worse, that I wouldn't act. But numbers don't lie. And neither did she in the ways that mattered. Tyler had access to the booking email because Nicole gave it to him. The same way she gave him the password to my HBO account, my laptop, the extra key to my truck. The same way she gave him permission, spoken or unspoken, to treat me like a tenant. When we sat down for dinner that night, I didn't mention the cruise. She didn't either. Tyler was at the table, texting with one hand, shoveling pasta with the other. He barely looked up. His friends were coming, he said. His mom smiled. I asked one question. Why didn't you ask me first? Nicole looked at me like I was being dramatic. It's just a room, Ethan. No, it wasn't. It was the only piece of that vacation that belonged to me. The only part one was looking forward to. A small sanctuary in a sea of obligation. And they took it without hesitation. Without apology. I nodded. Stood. Cleared my plate. And that was the end of the conversation. But not the end of the calculation. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling, hands folded over my chest, listening to Nicole breathe. The same way I used to listen for sounds of the front door, the nights she stayed out too long. The ones where she said she was with friends but her location didn't match. The ones where the shower ran before she kissed me hello. I counted backwards from 10. Again and again. Tried to calm the heat crawling up my throat. It didn't work. So I got up, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and a yellow legal pad. I opened every account, every booking, every detail of that cruise. I stared at the numbers until they felt like blood vessels. I listed them all. 3 passengers. Nicole, Tyler, one of Tyler's friends, all paid for by me. 1 reassigned cabin. My suite, stolen. 1 man, quietly removed from the equation. And 1 decision finally made. At 4:12 a.m. I hit cancel on every passenger under their names. I called the cruise line's emergency customer support and confirmed it. Rebooking was closed. Refunds not permitted this close to departure. Cancellations permanent. The agent said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yes." Then I packed my bag. At 6 a.m. I left the house. I left a note, but not for them. I left it for myself. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. By the time they arrived at the port that afternoon, Tyler in sunglasses, Nicole with her day bag, I was already on the ship, already checked in, already sipping a whiskey in the lounge, watching the terminal through a pane of glass so thick I couldn't hear their voices. But I saw them. I saw the confusion, the panic, Nicole digging through her phone, Tyler arguing with the port staff. I watched her wave her hands, point at the ship. I watched her mouth form my name, but I didn't wave back. The gangway lifted, the horn blew, and as the ship pulled away from the dock, I stood on the deck, drink in hand, watching them get smaller and smaller. That was the first moment I'd felt peace in years. Not joy, not triumph, just the quiet clarity that comes when a man finally stops pretending his generosity will change the nature of those who feed off it. I didn't answer Nicole's calls that night. Didn't read the texts either. They came in rapid waves. Missed calls stacked like tombstones. Messages that began with disbelief and ended in anger. Ethan, this isn't funny. Where are you? You left us stranded. Are you out of your mind? Call me. Now. Then later. You're destroying this family. Over a room? And finally, silence. The kind that's heavier than noise. The kind that doesn't come with peace, but with punishment withheld for later. I spent the first night of the cruise alone, seated at a two-person table beside the window. The waiter hesitated when he saw the empty chair across from me. I didn't explain, just ordered wine and steak and asked for silence. The ocean was black and endless outside the glass, the kind of horizon that swallows memory. I stared into it, and for the first time I didn't feel the pull to fix anything. I thought about the first time Tyler told me I wasn't his father. He was 14. Middle school rage blooming in his chest, his voice cracking from both hormones and hate. I had grounded him for missing curfew, simple, fair, reasonable. Nicole had agreed in theory, but when he shouted those words, "You're not my real dad. You can't tell me what to do," she said nothing. That silence was my first warning. She had the power to draw the line, to tell him, "He's your stepfather, but he's still an adult, and you'll respect him." But she didn't. She just looked at me with that mixture of pity and avoidance, like I was trying to speak a language she no longer understood. Over the years, Tyler wielded that phrase like a blade. Every time I tried to parent him, correct him, help him, "You're not my real dad," a get-out-of-jail-free card, Nicole would always smooth it over afterward. "He's just confused. It's hard for him having two father figures. You know he appreciates you deep down." Deep down. That was the story I told myself too. That underneath the eye rolls, the muttered insults, the refusals to include me in anything that mattered, there was gratitude, maybe even love. But people show you who they are. Eventually, when they stop pretending, when they no longer feel the need to manipulate you into service. Tyler had shown me. Nicole had too. The cruise debacle was only the tip of the iceberg. What broke me came after. 2 days into the trip, somewhere between Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, I decided to check the shared cloud account. Nicole never figured out how to lock her phone properly. I had access to everything: bank statements, cloud sync, photos. It was a breach, yes, but I already knew something was broken. I just needed the evidence. I found it all. Every piece. First, the messages. Nicole and Tyler weeks earlier discussing the room change. Tyler: "I don't want to sleep in a room with him snoring next to me." Nicole: "Don't worry. I'll fix it. He won't even notice until we're on board." Tyler: "Tell him it's just logistics." Nicole: "He's used to sacrificing. He'll suck it up. He'll suck it up." That was the language they used for me. Not ask him. Not see if he's okay with it. No, I was a non-factor. A variable that adjusted, not a person. Then came the photos. From earlier that month. Nicole out at dinners I wasn't invited to. Wine bars with candlelight. Not girls' nights. Always the same man, never touching her, not quite, but always leaning close. His hand on her back in one. Her laughing hand over his. I recognized him. Client. From her design firm. The one I introduced her to. The one who told me, 6 months ago, "Your wife's a knockout. Lucky man." My stomach turned cold. I scrolled further. Receipts for Ubers she'd taken across town at midnight. Hotel charges under aliases. A lingerie purchase shipped to her office. Not our home. Nicole had always been careful, but not careful enough. I spent that night sitting in the dark on the balcony, drink in hand, listening to the churn of the ocean below. Something inside me began to unravel, but not like thread, like steel. Tension snapping, metal recoiling. I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I did what I always do. I planned. I opened a document on my laptop, started a list. Things Nicole doesn't know. I already moved 80% of our joint savings into my personal investment portfolio under a trust. The house is still in my name. Her name's not on the title, despite what she tells her friends. The prenup is airtight, and I've been documenting every violation. I record our phone calls, legally in our state. I own every car, including hers. Insurance is in my name. So is the credit score that props up her lifestyle. I wrote it all down. Not to remind myself, but to remember that I am not powerless. They treated me like background noise, a wallet, a chauffeur, a steps tool they could climb, then mock from above. But I was done playing furniture. On the fourth night of the cruise, I attended the captain's dinner alone, dressed in the only suit I packed, ate salmon with saffron rice, drank wine meant for anniversaries that would never come. A couple from Minnesota asked if I was traveling solo. I smiled and said yes. That word tasted like truth. I began writing emails, quiet ones, to lawyers, to banks, to the realtor who had helped us during the renovation. One to the private investigator I had kept on retainer years ago, during the first bout of doubt. His number was still in my contacts. I never deleted it. I made a plan. Simple, clean, cold. Step 1. Freeze all shared accounts. Step 2. Change every password. Emails, utilities, streaming, everything. Step 3. Remove her from every bill that connected us. Step 4. When I returned, move out. Without a word. Let her come home to an empty house and a note. But the longer I sat with that plan, the less satisfying it felt. She didn't deserve an empty house. She deserved something else. Something cleaner. Something final. Not revenge. Reckoning. So I added step 5. Cancel her cards mid-trip. While she's still at home, unaware. Let her feel the floor shift. Let her wonder what's happening. Because here's the truth Nicole never understood. I don't fight fair. I don't throw dishes or scream. I don't storm out or beg for understanding. I disappear. I dismantle quietly, strategically, like a man unwiring a bomb. And this family? It was a bomb. Always ticking. I just finally heard it. On the last day of the cruise, I ordered champagne to my room. I toasted to my own silence. I sent one message to Nicole before powering my phone off. It read, "Tyler wanted my room. He can keep it. All of it. You too." No goodbye. No closure. Just the truth. When I disembarked the ship, I walked past the crowds, past the taxi lines, past the chaos of families finding each other. No one waited for me. And for once, I didn't envy the reunions. I got in a car and drove home alone. 5 hours. No music. Just the sound of my own breath and the low thrum of rubber on highway. When I pulled into the driveway, it was dark. I left the engine running. Looked at the house I had paid for. The one she decorated like it belonged to someone else. Tyler's car was in the driveway. Lights on inside. But I didn't go in. Pulled away. I had an appointment with a locksmith in the morning. A storage unit rented. A new apartment lease ready to sign. Let them wonder. Let them scream. Let them learn what happens when the man who carries everything finally drops it. When I walked into the apartment, it smelled like fresh paint and nothing else. White walls. No pictures. No furniture beyond a mattress on the floor and a folding table in the corner. No sound but my own footsteps. It was perfect. This was freedom, not joyous, not triumphant. Just clean. No evidence of their voices. No Tyler slamming doors. No Nicole pacing the hallway with her phone pressed to her ear, whispering to someone who wasn't me. Just air and quiet and a man who had finally stopped pretending. The next morning, I moved the rest of my things out. I used a truck I rented under my business account, the same account I used to lease the apartment, set up utilities, and buy a new phone. Everything untraceable to our joint records. I packed while they were gone. I didn't even have to rush. Nicole had taken Tyler out to dinner the night I returned. One of those mother-son nights she claimed kept them connected. As if I wasn't the one who paid for the connection. By the time they got back, the closets were empty. So were the drawers. All that remained was a note on the kitchen counter. You reap what you finance. Good luck. It didn't take long for the messages to start again. The first came from Nicole. At 9:13 p.m. Just minutes after she'd walked into the house. "Where is all your stuff? What is this? Ethan, what the hell is going on?" Then, "If this is about the cruise, we need to talk. You're being insane." Then Tyler chimed in. "Dude, are you seriously acting like a bitch over a vacation? Grow up." That one made me smile, because it confirmed everything I already knew. That they believed I was a fixture. Something they could disrespect without consequence. Someone who'd always absorb the hit and still pay the bill. They didn't know the bill was now theirs. The next day, I visited the bank in person. Sat across from a tired-looking manager in a tie that didn't fit and signed the documents to finalize account separation. I revoked Nicole's access to the joint savings. What she didn't know was that I had already drained it. Months ago, transferred everything into a personal investment vehicle under my name. She'd see the balance now, $112.43, and wonder where it all went. It went into me. It went into getting free. Next stop, the lawyer's office. My attorney, Cynthia, had been expecting me. She smiled when I walked in, not out of joy but recognition, like someone who'd seen the same story unfold 1,000 times and knew exactly which page we were on. "You ready?" she asked. I nodded. She slid the papers across the table. Divorce filing, evidence attachments, email chains, transaction logs, photos. It was all there. The messages between Nicole and Tyler, the photos of the client, the receipts, the cruise cancellation confirmations, everything admissible, everything timed perfectly. "Your prenup will hold," Cynthia said. "She gets nothing. No claim to the house. No alimony. And the kid, he's not yours, so no obligation there either." That last part landed like a clean breath. No obligation there either. We filed the paperwork. 2 hours later, Nicole called again. "Ethan, I'm begging you. Please, don't do this. I made a mistake. Okay? But we can fix it. We're a family." That was the first time she used that word. Family. When everything was collapsing. Not when Tyler told me I wasn't his father. Not when she let him humiliate me in my own house. Not when she laughed about moving my cabin like I was a piece of luggage. Only now, when her credit card bounced at Whole Foods and her Uber account locked her out. Suddenly, I was family again. I didn't reply. Instead, I messaged the HR department at Tyler's university. Told them that the tuition payments tied to my account would no longer be processed. Explained that I was not his legal guardian and no longer financially responsible. The administrator was polite but direct. "Understood. We'll update the record." One sentence. And just like that, the safety net was gone. 3 days passed. Then came the knock. Not on my apartment door. On the door of my office. My assistant buzzed me. "Your wife's here. She's upset." I told her to send Nicole in. She looked like a ghost. Pale, smeared mascara. Hair pulled back so tight it made her look older. She didn't sit. Just stood in the doorway like a woman who'd realized she was no longer the protagonist of the story. "What are you doing?" she asked, voice trembling. "Reclaiming my life," I said. "You're really divorcing me? Over this? Over Tyler?" I raised an eyebrow. "You think this is about the cruise?" She didn't answer. She didn't have to. That was her measure of betrayal. A room. A vacation. Not the years before. Not the silence. Not the lies. I opened the folder on my desk. Pulled out the photographs. The emails. The receipts. I didn't speak. I let the paper speak for me. Nicole's face changed. Not shame. Not sorrow. Just defeat. "You were spying on me?" she said softly. "No," I said. "I was preparing. There's a difference." She sank into the chair. Her voice cracked. "Tyler didn't mean any of it. He's just a kid. You know that. He's 19. But he doesn't understand. He understands perfectly." I cut in. "He understands that he could spit in my face and you'd hand him a tissue. That he could call me a joke, a wallet, a non-entity, and you'd laugh it off. He understands that you'd always choose him, not because he's your son, but because it's easier than confronting who he is." Nicole's eyes welled. She reached for my hand. I didn't move. "I never stopped loving you," she whispered. "That's the worst part," I said. "You did. You just didn't notice." She left the office that day with nothing. No promise of reconciliation. No hope of returning to the home that was no longer hers. Only the beginning of the collapse. Started small. Tyler's tuition payment bounced. He emailed me. A single sentence full of rage. You can't do this. You promised. I didn't reply. Then the credit card shut down. The shared Amazon account locked out. Netflix asked for a new payment method. Uber deactivated. Nicole texted again. Ethan. He's spiraling. Please, help us. Funny how fast the lines reappear when the power goes out. I ignored her. Then came the call from Tyler himself. Blocked number. I answered out of curiosity. Ethan, he said. Just my name. Not dude. Not bro. Not bitch. His voice cracked. I can't register for spring classes. They're saying I need to pay out of pocket. I don't have it. Mom doesn't have it. Please. I waited. He said it again. Please. Silence on my end. I know I said shit. I didn't mean it. I was being stupid. But you've always been there. Always. Don't let me fall now. And that's when it hit me. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. He was asking for continuation. For the machine to start again. For the faucet to flow. But the reservoir was dry. I'm not your father, remember? I said. I didn't mean it. You meant it enough. And that means I don't owe you anything. He cursed. Begged. Then hung up. Nicole tried one last time. She showed up at the apartment. Knocked softly. Brought coffee like we were still playing house. I opened the door but didn't let her in. Her voice was tired. Cracked. He's dropping out. Ethan. He's angry all the time. Says I ruined everything. You did. I said. She blinked. You both did. Tears welled. Please. I'll make it right. I shook my head. You can't unburn a bridge. Then I closed the door. And for the first time in years, the lock sounded like freedom. They stopped calling. Eventually. Not right away. The silence didn't come like snowfall. It came like war ending. Loud. Messy. Desperate. Nicole sent letters. Emails. Voice messages that started with anger and ended in grief. Tyler tried once more, one long, rambling voicemail at 2:34 a.m. Voice thick with tears or liquor, maybe both. I didn't mean it, man. I swear. I was a kid. I didn't know what I was saying. You were there. Always. Always. Please. I'm sorry. Just talk to me. I didn't save it. I didn't replay it. I let the system delete it automatically after 30 days. Like dust swept from the floor. The truth is, it was too late. You don't get to weaponize someone's love and then ask them to forget the wounds. You don't get to tell a man he's nothing, and then expect him to rebuild the world when yours collapses. Nicole tried to recover. For a while. I heard through mutual acquaintances, people who didn't know the full story, that she went back to work full-time. Started selling her designer handbags online. Moved into a smaller place closer to her office. Tyler dropped out. No surprise there. His father, the biological one, hadn't returned his calls. Of course he hadn't. Ghosts don't parent. They haunt. The last I heard, Tyler was working nights at a shipping warehouse. Nicole told someone he was finding himself. I didn't laugh. I just nodded and sipped my coffee. There's a kind of justice that doesn't look like revenge. It looks like absence. Like silence. Like a chair that used to be filled, now empty. Like a bank account with one name on it. Mine. I didn't change overnight. That would be too easy. The first few weeks in the apartment were hollow. I'd wake in the middle of the night, half expecting to hear Tyler's footsteps stomping through the hallway. Nicole's voice floating through the bathroom door. But it was just me. Always just me. And slowly that stopped feeling like loneliness. It started to feel like peace. I started going to the gym again. Started cooking for one. Learned how quiet a home could be when there was no one in it who resented you. Bought a new car, nothing flashy. But mine. Every inch of it. Every payment. Nobody rolling their eyes in the passenger seat. Saying it wasn't cool enough. Somewhere in that silence, I found myself again. And then I met Hannah. At a conference in Chicago. She was a keynote speaker, brilliant, composed, sharp in all the ways that didn't need explaining. We talked during the after-dinner drinks. She asked what I did. I told her I was recovering. From a family I funded but was never allowed to belong to. She laughed. Not cruelly, but knowingly. A few weeks later, I asked her out. Our first date lasted 5 hours. She asked me one question that stuck in my ribs. Did they ever say thank you? I paused. No, I said. Not once. She nodded, stirred her coffee. Love without respect, she said, is just emotional debt. I didn't need her to fix me. I didn't want that. What I wanted, what I needed, was someone who saw me without trying to mold me into a myth. And for the first time, I believed it was possible. That I wasn't broken, just buried, under years of obligations dressed up as love. I've never seen Tyler again. Not in person. Not even a glimpse. I don't know if he'd recognize me now. Not just the beard I grew, the weight I lost, the new job title. But the absence of the man he once depended on. The scaffolding is gone. The building stands or falls on its own. Nicole, I heard, tried to date again. It didn't last. Maybe it's hard to find a man willing to pay for a lifestyle she's no longer entitled to. Maybe it's harder to find someone who doesn't ask what happened to the last guy. I kept the evidence. All of it. Not for revenge. But because someday maybe I'll need to remember. What it cost. What I escaped. What it looks like when a man chooses his dignity over a seat at someone else's table. Because that's what it was. A table set for 3 where I was always the ghost. Always expected to pour the wine, serve the meal, and be grateful for the privilege of silence. But no more. Now I sit at my own table. Sometimes with Hannah. Sometimes alone. But never surrounded by mouths that bite the hand that feeds them. And that brings me to you, whoever you are. Reading this, maybe you're a stepfather too. Maybe you're in that house right now, wondering if the silence you endure is noble or suicidal. Maybe you're telling yourself it's just a phase, that they'll come around, that someday they'll understand. Maybe they will. But what if they don't? What if the thank you never comes? What if the love you've poured becomes a well they throw stones into? What if you spend a decade as the shadow father, only to be told you were never more than a stand-in? And what if, in trying to be the bigger man, you lose yourself entirely? I did, for a while. But I got out. I rebuilt. And now I live without resentment, without bitterness, without them, because the day I walked away wasn't the day I gave up on them. It was the day I remembered myself. So now I ask you, was I wrong to leave? Was I wrong to let them feel the weight of a world they thought I owed them? Or was that the only lesson they were ever going to learn? You decide. But as for me, I've already made peace with my answer. And I live with it every day. In silence. In freedom. In full.